The dusty, windswept arena stretched out beneath the twin suns, casting long shadows across the scorched ground. It was a place of death and honor, where warriors from across the galaxy gathered to prove their worth in combat. Today, the arena would bear witness to something extraordinary. A human, stripped of all weapons and protection, fighting for his life against a ruthless alien warrior. The crowd, a mix of alien species, stood in restless silence, watching as the human entered the ring. His name was Jack Donovan, a soldier from Earth, and his reputation had spread far and wide. He'd been captured during a failed mission and brought to this remote world where he was tossed into the gladiatorial pits for the amusement of the powerful alien factions. It wasn't his first time fighting for survival, but it was his most dangerous. The alien overseer raised his arm, signaling the start of the match. The human, clad in nothing but a torn flight suit, faced his opponent, a towering figure whose skin shimmered with the metallic gleam of an alien warrior. The alien's name was Rilka, and her reputation was legendary. She had killed countless foes in the arena and was a favorite among the crowd. There was no doubt that she would end the human's life in mere moments. But Jack wasn't afraid. He knew he was outmatched in strength and size. But he had something his opponent didn't. Experience. He had been trained to think quickly, adapt to his environment, and fight with whatever tools were at his disposal. In this moment, there was only one thing that mattered: survival. Rilka lunged first, her massive claws slicing through the air with terrifying speed. Jack ducked, narrowly avoiding the strike, and rolled to the side. The ground was uneven, rocky, but it offered him some cover. He glanced around, searching for anything he could use as a weapon. His heart pounded in his chest, but his mind remained sharp. He needed to think. Rilka roared in frustration and advanced again, her movements fluid and deadly. She was fast, but Jack had a few tricks up his sleeve. As she swung her claws down, he grabbed a broken piece of metal from the ground and deflected the blow, using the shard as a shield. The crowd gasped at his quick thinking. Rilka stumbled back, momentarily caught off guard, and Jack pressed the advantage. He lunged forward, aiming for her vulnerable side, but she was ready. With a swift motion, Rilka spun, knocking the metal shard from his hand. The weapon clattered to the ground, useless. Jack was left standing, unarmed, facing an opponent with far more power and skill. The alien warrior smirked, clearly enjoying the human's desperation. "You will die like the rest," she hissed, her voice echoing in the arena. But Jack didn't flinch. He had no choice but to fight, to find a way to win. With a roar, he rushed at Rilka, using his agility to outmaneuver her massive frame. He ducked under a wild strike and grabbed hold of her arm, using her momentum to flip her to the ground. The crowd erupted in surprise, but Jack wasn't finished. He scrambled to his feet and moved quickly to pin her down, using every ounce of strength to hold her in place. Rilka snarled, her struggle intensifying, but Jack kept his grip firm. He knew that if he hesitated, if he let her get the upper hand, it would be the end for him. The alien warrior was stronger, but Jack had one thing she didn't: determination. For a moment, the two locked eyes. Jack could see the fury in Rilka's gaze, but also something else, something more human. It was the look of someone who had been forced into this life, a warrior bound by honor and duty, but with no choice but to fight. With a final, desperate push, Jack managed to subdue her, using his legs to pin her to the ground. Rilka's breath came in heavy gasps, her body trembling beneath him. For a moment there was silence. The crowd was still, watching in disbelief. No one had expected the human to survive, let alone fight so fiercely. Jack's chest heaved with exhaustion, but he didn't release her. He knew this moment would define him. If he could hold Rilka down, if he could prove that even a human could survive in this brutal arena, then maybe, just maybe, he could earn the respect he needed to escape. As the seconds ticked by, the alien warrior's struggle began to slow. She was defeated, but not broken. Jack's heart raced as he held her down, his hands trembling. He could feel her strength waning. but he knew she wasn't finished yet. She was a fighter, just like him. Finally, Rilke stopped resisting. She lay there, breathing heavily, her chest rising and falling with each breath. Jack could feel her body shifting beneath him, but she didn't attempt to escape. Instead, she looked up at him, her eyes locking with his. And then, something unexpected happened. "Be mine," Rilke said, her voice soft but filled with an intensity that made Jack's heart skip a beat. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't a plea. It was a statement, as though she had made a decision that, somehow, included him. Jack didn't know how to respond. He had been expecting to hear the sound of his own death, not an invitation. He blinked, trying to make sense of her words. Could she mean what she said? Before he could speak, the alien overseer's voice echoed through the arena, breaking the silence. "Enough."
"The fight is over. The human has won."
The crowd roared in approval. But Jack's mind was elsewhere. He didn't care about their cheers. He cared about Rilke's words, about the strange connection that had formed between them in the heat of battle. As he stood up, pulling away from the fallen warrior, Rilke remained on the ground, watching him with an unreadable expression. She didn't try to fight back, didn't try to escape. She simply watched him, as though she were waiting for something. Jack didn't know what that something was, but he felt it. Deep within him, something had shifted. He had won the fight, but had he really won? Jack sat alone in the dimly lit cell, his body bruised and sore from the fight in the arena. He hadn't expected to survive, but somehow, against all odds, he had. The cheers of the alien crowd still echoed in his mind, but they felt distant, meaningless. The real question remained. What now? He had expected death in that arena, not the strange moment of connection that had passed between him and Rilke. The words she had spoken, "Be mine," kept replaying in his head.
What did they mean? Was it a victory in her eyes or something else?
He leaned back against the stone wall of the cell, closing his eyes and trying to focus on the steady rhythm of his breathing. His hands were still trembling, but not from fear. It was the adrenaline, the rush of surviving against such an overwhelming foe. But it wasn't just the fight that troubled him. It was Rilke. Her words. Her eyes. There was something about her that he couldn't shake. Suddenly, the door to his cell creaked open. Jack's muscles tensed instinctively, ready to spring into action if necessary. But when he saw who stood in the doorway, his tension eased slightly. It was Rilke. Her presence filled the small room, and Jack couldn't help but feel the weight of her gaze. She was a warrior, strong, determined, and terrifying in battle. But in this moment, she didn't seem like the fierce warrior he had fought. She seemed different, vulnerable, almost. "You're still alive," she said, her voice a mixture of surprise and something deeper. Something Jack couldn't quite place. Jack didn't respond at first. He simply watched her, taking in the details of her appearance. She stood tall, her armor still gleaming in the low light, but there was something soft about her posture now. She wasn't the same warrior who had tried to kill him in the arena. There was something else in her eyes, something that made him think she was no longer just a fierce alien opponent, but a person with her own struggles and fears. "Why are you here?" Jack finally asked, his voice hoarse from the fight earlier. Rilke stepped inside, the door closing behind her with a soft thud. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked slowly toward him, her movements deliberate, almost measured. Jack's heart rate picked up again, but it wasn't from fear. He was curious. He didn't know what she wanted, but he knew she had something important to say. Something that had nothing to do with the fight in the arena. "I've been watching you," Rilke said, her voice quiet but steady. "Not just in the fight, but since you arrived." Jack raised an eyebrow at her words. "Watching me?" he repeated. "Why?" Her gaze softened, but only slightly. There was still that intense, unyielding edge to her presence. "Because you're different from the others. You fight with honor, not just for survival. You don't rely on weapons, but on yourself.
Jack's mind raced. Was she trying to recruit him for something?
Had she been impressed by his ability to think quickly and act under pressure? Or was this all part of some elaborate game? He wasn't sure, but he knew that he couldn't just let his guard down. I'm just a soldier, a man fighting for survival. I've been trained to think quickly, to adapt, Jack replied, his voice steady.
But that's it. I'm not some...
hero or anything.
Rilke shook her head slowly, the edges of her lips curling into a faint smile. You don't see it, do you?
You're not just a soldier. You're something more. You've already proven that. That's why I'm here.
Jack felt a strange chill run down his spine.
Her words carried weight, but he couldn't make sense of them. He had done nothing but fight to stay alive. He had no ambitions beyond escaping this hellhole, getting back to his people. That was all he cared about. What do you want from me? He asked, his voice blunt. Rilke paused, her gaze shifting away for a moment, as though she were gathering her thoughts. Then she looked back at him, her eyes intense, almost searching. I want you to understand, she said slowly.
I don't want you as a weapon. I don't want you as a pawn in some game.
I want you as an ally.
Jack frowned. An ally? He repeated her words, trying to make sense of them. Why would you need me as an ally? Rilke's eyes darkened, her expression serious.
My people are at war. We've been fighting for generations.
But I've seen the futility of endless conflict. I've seen the damage it does to both sides, and I'm tired of it. I want a way out. I want peace. Jack was quiet for a long time, processing her words. Peace. The idea seemed foreign to him. He had been a soldier his entire life, fighting for survival, never thinking about the bigger picture. But now, as Rilke stood before him, her words began to take root in his mind. Was it possible? Could peace be a reality? I'm not sure I can help you, Jack said, his voice quiet. I'm just one man. Rilke took a step closer, her voice soft but firm. You're more than just one man. You're the key to something bigger. You don't know it yet, but you're part of a plan that could change everything. Jack swallowed, his throat dry. He couldn't deny that something inside him stirred. Something deep within him wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that there was a way out of the endless violence he had known. But he was a soldier, a realist. He knew that peace was often just a dream, one that was impossible to achieve. Why me? Jack asked, his voice a little softer now. Why did you choose me? Rilke's gaze softened, and for the first time since she entered the cell, her eyes seemed to hold something more than determination. There was something in them, something almost vulnerable. Because you saw me as a person, not just as a warrior. You didn't fight me for the glory or for honor. You fought me because you had to, and you respected me for that. That's rare, and I need someone who understands that. Jack met her gaze, his mind still spinning with the implications of her words. She wasn't asking for a soldier to follow her orders. She was asking for an ally, someone who would stand beside her, not because of loyalty or duty, but because they believed in what she was trying to do. For the first time, Jack considered the possibility that he might be more than just a soldier. He might be part of something that could change the future, not just for him, but for everyone involved. But there was still so much he didn't understand. He had no idea what Rilke's plan was, or how he fit into it. All he knew was that this was bigger than just him. Bigger than the fight in the arena. I don't know if I can help you, Jack said, but his voice was quieter now, less certain. But I'll hear you out, for now. Rilke's eyes softened further, and she nodded slowly. That's all I ask. As she turned to leave, Jack watched her go, his mind buzzing with questions and doubts. What had he just agreed to? Was he really ready to join forces with someone like her? An alien warrior with ambitions beyond anything he could understand. But as Rilke left the cell, Jack couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning of something much larger than he had ever imagined.